It was.
Walk by throwing them on the desk.
This all got rezoned in 2006.
Call the meeting to order. Will you please stand and follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation to be given by Eldon Long. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's bow. Father, we thank you that we have an administration that recognizes prayer. And Father, I thank you that every business meeting starts with prayer. Every planning commission starts with prayer. But Father, that shows that we are a city that's truly wanting your guidance and direction in all things. And so, Father, as we come and assemble ourselves here tonight, we come realizing that we are but your children, and you have blessed us with our families, our community, our jobs, our businesses. And so, Father, as we come together for this hour, we just ask that you would give guidance and clarity, give direction, and that is for the betterment of each individual that lives within Lowell. Father, we pray that you would just continue to bless and prosper this city, and prosper this community, and the people thereof. In Jesus' name.
Roll call, please.
Linda Shimko. Here. Jerry Foley.
Here.
Eric Shine.
Here.
Aaron Brock.
Here.
Keith Williams.
Here.
Kendall Stuckey.
Here.
Marty Latham. Here. Paula Allred. We do have a quorum.
Next item on the agenda is a consent agenda, which contains the Lowell City Council minutes from the regular meeting of April 6, 2010, and the financial statement for March 2010. Any questions? If there's no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Marty Latham.
Yes.
Kendall Stuckey.
Yes.
Eric Shine.
Yes.
Keith Williams.
Yes.
Darren Brock.
Yes.
Linda Shimko.
Yes.
Jerry Foley.
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is a public forum. For those of you that are not familiar with our system, we have a sign-in sheet if you want to speak at the public forum. So we only have one person that signed in, but if any of you want to speak, I will give you a chance to speak. Guy Shoemaker.
Guy Shoemaker, 315 Center Drive, Lowell, Arkansas. I'm here to talk against the rezoning of that property over in Center Point. Now, last night, the Planning Commission voted to rezone it. They don't live in Center Point. Any time a Planning Commission will go against a whole subdivision, where do they have their heads and their brains? I question it seriously. Jerry Foley, we supported Jerry when they wanted to run that road by J.B. Hunt's. That got shot down. Why put us a shopping center in a housing area? Are they going to widen the roads to meet the commercial traffic? How are they going to get into that area, that 1.65 acres on the east side of Center Drive? They're going to come up the hill, make a left at the stop sign, then make another left into it. We have a lot of kids. I have 2 grandsons, and they are like their grandpa. They're rowdy as a devil. They're rough, tough little characters, and they love to play. Now, this thing is coming up. Now, I promise you, whoever votes for this thing tonight, I will be on Kerm Radio. I've already talked to Kerm that I will do everything in my power and spend an untold amount of money to get you unseated. We do not need a commercial shopping center in Center Point. No. And Mayor, you live there, so you should know. Marty lives there. Paula lives there. Now, we got one over here in Franklin, which is nice. The shopping center is completely separated from the housing area. Where is the garbage bins going to be in that shopping center? They're going to be on the street, facing the street, or they're going to be facing Bluff Drive? Franklin said last night that he's been paying taxes on that thing for X number of years. It don't belong to him. It belongs to his parents. I went down to the county today to check on it. He complains that, don't you read your tax bill? I do. I read every bill I get in my house. It comes in today, I read it, study it, verify it, and then I pay it. And I think we should very, very fight this hand and foot. And if anybody wants to form a pool, I will put $500 into that pool for lawyer fees to fight it if this thing is approved tonight. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wish to speak? Please state your name and address.
My name is Jerry Ray, and I'm at 116 Center Drive. I'd like to start out with, I looked on the Lowell webpage, and the mission for the planning department says that it is to assist the public in managing the development of the community in order to protect and preserve the quality of life. The meeting last night, we had an outpouring. I don't know if any of you were here, but we had an outpouring of people from our neighborhood. I felt like some of the commission did not listen to us, and they didn't follow their own mission statement to protect and preserve the quality of life. Second, it was also brought up that it was established in 2006 that the planning and zoning had a massive overhaul of zoning, and that particular plat was zoned residential. The reason given was that at that time it was the best option for that property. I can understand their reasoning since it is obviously part of a neighborhood. The best option for that land would be to have homes built on it that face Bluff Drive. And it was also brought up that the land on the other side of Center Drive is already commercial. And the difference with that land is it can be accessed from Highway 264. And if it ever is developed, I hope that the Planning Commission has something in place that would restrict that land from being entered from Center Drive, and that there would be some very restrictive buffers before that land was developed. And if not, then I think the Commission needs to go back to the drawing board. We live in a nice neighborhood. It's one way in and out. The children ride their bikes, people walk their dogs, all the normal things you do in your neighborhood. If it is developed commercial, it would actually extend into our neighborhood. The extra traffic that would enter on Center Drive would be a problem. They would have to enter actually on the street that enters our subdivision. The light and noise pollution. I live 2 doors down. I don't want a drive-through speaker. I don't want to have to hear that. I don't want to have an ATM that's accessed 24 hours a day. Or a doctor's office that has medicine that someone could break into. And if they don't get what they're looking for, there's 100 homes right there. The safety of our residents. We have children all the time riding their bikes. If there's a commercial development there, would you feel safe having your children ride their bikes through there? A lot of people that would be coming to that business, they would not realize that it is not a through street. We'd have to contend with speeders down there. It is a closed street. The traffic getting in and out of Center Drive is already hard enough, especially if you're coming from the west and coming over the little hill. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that driveway there. It's just an accident waiting to happen. You take your own life getting in and out of there as it is. Which begs the question, is there a reason for the empty lot at the end of Bluff Street next to the Franklin's home? Is that a future through street? I don't know. I haven't covered all the reasons why I feel like it should remain residential, but the decision of the Planning and Zoning Department and the City Council should be for the residents of this town also. You need both residential and commercial to flourish, and I understand that. Lowell has been very good to the Franklins. I don't think they complain about anything about that. The decision made in 2006 was a good one for the residents of Lowell. And I would encourage the City Council to work closely with the Planning and Zoning Committee to ensure that any ordinance passed are beneficial to all stated in their mission statement. One last thing, according to the Lowell website, the average income is $56,000. The average age is 30, which I'm obviously not the average age. But our homes are our most important investment that we make in our life, and you choose wisely when you do that. The property is residential, and some people made their decision to live in that neighborhood based on that information. If there's a chance that we will lose more property value in this economy as it is, people have to make a choice to stay or to sell. With a lower property value comes a different working class for the city of Lowell also, and a different average income. I hope the council makes their decisions not based on small town politics, but as individuals with everyone in mind. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? All right, we'll go to the next item on the agenda. An ordinance amending the City of Lowell Code of Ordinances, Section 8-102, by rezoning certain lands from residential RC to commercial C. Steve, that's you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the City Council. First, I'd like to ask, is everybody...
Please state your name for the record.
My name is Steve Franklin. I live at 415 Bluff Drive in the subdivision in question. But first of all, I'd like to ask, is everybody familiar with the property that we're discussing tonight as a rezone?
Has all the council members been out to look at it? Hold up your hand if you've been out to look at it.
Well, I know where it's at exactly.
Okay, so everybody's familiar with it. Excuse me just one moment. I want to bring the easel over here. Well, I want to start by saying our intention for filing this rezone is to return the property to the previous zoning that it had, to make it the highest and best use for this property, which was commercial, and bring consistency back to Highway 264 Monroe Avenue, Overlay District, etc. I just want to point out to everyone, the property in question is right here. And if you look between these two highways, that is the only thing zoned on this map, the only thing colored, that is not red for commercial. I'd also like to make clear that this property has never been a part of Centerpoint Park subdivision. It's a portion, it's 1.65 acres of an approximate 20-acre parcel. This is not a separate parcel. This is a piece of a parcel. The current zoning was not requested by the property owner. And again, the property owner has paid taxes on this as a commercial rate since 1989. Just to demonstrate a little timeline. Tell me if you can't see. Land was purchased by the family, 1919. The piece of property we're talking about tonight was zoned commercial in 1989. The first home was built in the subdivision in 1992. The last home was built in 1999. The property, unbeknownst to the property owner, was rezoned in 2006. And again, the only reason the property owner was made aware of the rezoning was through a discussion I had of another related subject with the mayor, who said, by the way, we have a problem with this property. What is it? It's zoned residential. Well, how can that be? And tonight, of course, we're here to talk about rezoning. I'm not sure how many of you were in attendance last night at the Planning Commission meeting. I know some were, so I just I'd like to repeat a few things that were said last night by the Planning Commission members themselves. Highway 71, Bloomington Avenue, and Highway 264, Monroe Avenue, are definitely best suited for commercial property. If they are not, then nothing in the Lowell fits commercial designation. That's your Planning Commission speaking. The changes made to this property appear to be spot zoning to me. We're talking about a piece of a parcel. How do you take a single parcel and give it two separate zoning designations without splitting it and without the owner's request? I don't recall the change being made to the maps during the process, especially going from C2 to residential, and I would have never recommended that. These are statements made last night by your Planning Commissioner members. Again, we are trying to return this to the zoning designation that it had before 2006. Well before the last house was built in Centerpoint. Excuse me, well after. Well after the last house was built in Centerpoint. And a designation that it had since 1989. Part of the Planning Commission's responsibility is to find the highest and best use for property. I hear and understand the concerns of the residents. But let me remind the council that this property is in the overlay district, which has the most restrictive regulations of any designation in the city. Again, highest and best use, return to the zoning that it had prior to 2006, bring consistency back to the Monroe Avenue corridor. I would just close in saying that please recall that the reason we're here tonight is the Planning Commission perhaps saw the direction that should have been taken and acted on it last night, and that's why we're here tonight.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions from the council members?
Mr. Mayor, when this was rezoned, how did it take place?
I'm not real sure. I think Tom can answer that question, but this was rezoned in 2006. The ordinances that rezoned it was approved by the Planning Commission. In fact, Selena Wright Brown, who is now chairman of the Planning Commission, helped participate in preparing this. In this booklet, there's a map dated 2006 that clearly shows it was changed. It was part of the approval of the, I guess they call that Section 8, don't they? Yeah.
Used to.
Everybody had a copy of this. So that's the communication method is. So everybody was aware that they voted for it. I have the records of the voting, but these are the facts right here.
Okay. And prior to that map and that voting, this was commercial, so it's contingent upon that vote.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Tom can tell us how that took place. He
Yes,
was the
please.
city lawyer at that time.
Right, it's what the mayor said. Recall that process. The Planning Commission, as well as several citizens who weren't on the Planning Commission, and anybody else who just wanted to participate, some came in and out of the process. Some were there every single time. I know I was there on several meetings, I think not every one. Sort of pasted maps up everywhere on boards, on the walls, on the tables, and also text, the actual text of the ordinance, all the pages in there. And what the changes that were made were, let's say you had 3 zones before, residential, commercial, industrial, and you had more. Let's say you had 3. You turn those 3 into, let's say, 8. Okay? So the 3 that were there are now gone. And you had to look at each individual parcel, literally, and each area of the city, every street, every business, everything, and figure out what was the best new designation to place upon the property. The idea was make it match as closely as possible to what it is now. Okay? And there were about 6 or 8 exceptions to that. Some things were no longer going to exist ever again. Best example, asphalt plants. There was never ever going to be an asphalt plant in Lowell again if this thing passed, at least until it was changed. And there was 1 or 2 areas that were, that had a designation of like asphalt plant, rendering plant, just very, very industrial uses. And so you had to figure out, well, what's happening around that area right now? What's the best designation for that? And there were 6 or 7 of those also areas that just needed changing as far as the folks who were in the process were concerned. This wasn't one person, it wasn't 2 people, it was input from all kinds of people over a long period of time. And then, they finally said, guys, we've had enough of the, sausage making. Let's put this out here. And then the final draft stayed out for months, at least 1 or 2 or 3 months. There was tremendous pressure to get it passed, and the Planning Commission showed a lot of restraint to the administration at that time and said, I know you want this passed, but we're going to keep it slow because this is so important. And then it was finally adopted. And this is one of those areas, this particular 1.65 acres, where a change was made for reasons that I can't tell you what they are right now. I have a memory of what they were, and other people might as well. But it was one of those that was changed. There were a few others. I know the J.B. Hunt property where the asphalt plant was going to go was one for sure, because we were threatened with suit over that as well. And a couple of others that just, the city can do that. The city can rezone property, and this is one of those ones. So that's what happened. It's been over 3 years ago now. That is the law now. What the zoning is the law. To call it a mistake is confusing the meaning of the word mistake. It's the law now. It's no mistake. It's what it is. There's no doubt that everyone, looked at it once, twice, 3 or 4 times, because this whole map was looked at for meeting after meeting after meeting. So is that a good enough explanation, Eric?
Yeah, that is very clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Darren?
I do remember that, and I do remember us taking a very long time going through the whole Section 8 thing at the time, and coming back time and again, and public meeting after public meeting after public meeting, and many times. But on these exceptions that we ended up changing a designation, do you remember, or is there a record, what kind of notification we would have done to anyone affected by that? I mean, would there have been?
Yeah. Here's my memory. My memory is and you guys, please feel free to correct me if you're wrong. There were 7 or 8 of these that were so serious that those people were actually contacted individually by letter or phone call or both, or personal visit. I mean, they were in this office, in not this building, it was that building. Everyone else in town was notified the way everyone is notified of every ordinance. Publication in the paper of the meeting times, the subject of the meetings. The map was attached to a mail out that I think went to everybody, or at least, if not the map, notice of the meetings. But did we have a little map? I remember the newsletter had the actual, like this size. It was awfully tiny, but I think the actual map, I think it was more just to get everybody's attention. The idea was to bring as much in as possible, but so that was what everyone got. But in addition to what everyone got, those people were all talked to. Now, in the Franklin's case, I don't know if it was Mr. and Ms. Franklin or these gentlemen here. I know that Chris has told me that they were here once, and then this gentleman said last night that he was here several times in several meetings, but didn't think this property was ever going to be affected. But that's my recollection, is that those folks, because I remember having meetings with other ones, they really wanted to know what they were going to wake up as that morning after this was adopted, if it ever was. And so that a lot of time was put into talking to those folks.
And am I understanding this correctly, that this piece of property that is on the frontage of Bluff Drive is also a part of the property on the other side of Center, and that's all one parcel?
Yes.
It is one parcel, and that's a not uncommon misconception that a parcel can only have one zoning designation. That's not true at all. And in Lowell, there are, I bet you, probably 6 to 12 examples of where zoning designations go through parcels. But it's if you couldn't do that, people would be forced to split property all the time in the silliest of ways, because a lot of times you want to zone frontage one way and the back another way and such. So in some cities, they literally zone along streets and go 300 feet either side, regardless of where the parcel is, and make that one designation and then go beyond into residential. So, but that is the case with this parcel.
Any other questions?
Well, I would ask, and I guess it's Mr. Franklin would be the one to ask, since this is something that we did change, nearly 4 years ago. What is the urgency to look at this now? Is there an action plan for this property that suddenly we realize we have the wrong zoning for what we want to do for it? I mean, zoning only means something when you go to actually do something with the property.
That's true.
Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything.
Let me answer that question in just one moment. Let me back up to what was just said regarding notification. I attended meetings at Tucker Elementary, reviewed a map, noted that there were no changes on that map that affected this property or any other property that my parents own. They wouldn't continue to voluntarily pay commercial property taxes on property they knew had been rezoned. That just doesn't fly. My parents have relocated. They were inside the city of Lowell. It was de-annexed by Lowell and annexed by Roger, so they don't get the Lowell newsletter. So to say that they were notified, believe me, this property owner, if something's going on with his property and he's notified, he will be attentive. Regarding immediate plans for this property, no, there are none. The issue here is I'm gonna paraphrase the attorney or city attorney. This is law, and in having spoken with the mayor, this is the process we had to go through to correct an error. In my judgment, this is an error. This was taken out of one designation and put in another in error. It was signed into law. Therefore, we're here going through this process. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. But no, there are no immediate plans. And again, that's in the overlay district with the strictest regulations that Lowell has. It only makes sense to continue to designate that as commercial. As you can see in the timeline, that's been commercial since before any of the houses were built in this subdivision. It shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that it was a commercial designation. Again, highest and best use, and this is a single parcel of land.
Any other questions? If there are no other questions, I'll entertain
I do
them.
have one question. Was this unanimous with the Planning Commission last night?
No, it was not.
It was not.
Michael, what was the vote?
4-3. Just wonder if it was a unanimous vote with the Planning Commission last night. So.
I think what concerns me the most about this, there's a couple of things. There's a couple of things about this whole issue that concerns me. Mr. Franklin has said that when he looked at Tucker, at the drawings, he saw no effect to his property. And apparently we can't find anything that was shown at Tucker. He also made the statement last night that Joe Bishop was with you when you looked at the property. And he keeps making the point that this was an error. But we haven't been able to see that we actually did this. And I can't remember. You know, I don't want him to be penalized for an error on the city's part. On the other coin, you know, this is a real two-sided coin. And of course, I live in that subdivision, and I tried to recuse myself, but our attorney tells me I can't.
You don't have to vote, Marty. I'm just saying you don't have to recuse. You don't have to vote, but you may recuse.
If I don't vote, it's a no vote, right? So I might as well just vote.
May I? Okay.
Here's the thing. That piece of land is high, it's tall, it's 1.2 acres. Ms. Jerry, what was your last name? Ray really had some good points about that property. The way this is laid out, there is one entrance into here. Of course, commercial on the west, it's huge, and it affects all of Center just about. However, if the people have to come in, and I remember this conversation sometime, somewhere, talking about bringing people in on Center and sending them down west, a road west. And I don't remember that where we had it, why we had it.
Yeah, what context?
However, this portion over here on the east is high, and she's absolutely right. It will force people into the subdivision because I don't see any way to access that piece of property unless you come in Center. So it's a real two-sided coin where I'm seeing it. You have a man that owned property, and it has been rezoned by the city, unbeknownst to him, possibly in error. Don't know the answer to that. Looking at the piece of property, the best use for it is probably not to put something commercial right there on top of the subdivision.
Allow me, Marty, to assist you perhaps. The inquiry into whether it was in error or not, or whether it was known or not, is not relevant. Literally, legally, and in all ways, not relevant. And here's why. Fairness is taken care of for you. It's taken care of in this process. This is called due process. The gentleman who owns the property has received notification and had his opportunity to be heard. And that is through a process where he was invited and has taken the opportunity to seek rezone of his property. The folks who feel like they're affected by it have also received notice and have had the opportunity to be heard. The Planning Commission, very responsibly, wasn't easy on them, did the hard thing of letting everybody be heard, they themselves being heard. They deliberated and made a decision to recommend a due pass. The only criteria you have in front of you is this property best as residential or commercial, in your opinion, today? Everybody in this room is being treated fairly, period, because the fairness is built into the process. The reason you can't remember what happened 4 years ago is because you're not built to. None of us are. We can't remember what happened at every one of those meetings. Dear God, there were 50,000 meetings. I went to them. There were meetings at the fire station, at the school, in the city hall. They're all over the place. Ah. And they were great because the community came forward. They were heard. Some of them were pleasant. Some of them were not so pleasant. But they were all, the process. And so that process took place, and this is the result. Okay? It's been the result for 4 years. The only way for that to be changed now is if the Planning Commission and the City Council, or one of the City Council, quite frankly, the Planning Commission has done its job. They've done the hash out work, and they've made a recommendation. Now the City Council has to decide, is that what they think? Because only you can change the zoning. But the only criteria you need is the criteria that's, in the law for rezoning decisions. You've heard highest and best use. One of the many, many, many factors that you all consider in a rezone. It's what's happening right now. That could change literally tomorrow. Tomorrow, Mike or the mayor could be contacted by a major business, whether it be residential or commercial, that says, we want to change Lowell completely for the good, help us find property. And they come to you and say, hey, this thing, it's out the window. We got a better plan. So that can change tomorrow. It changes every day. So you have to make, I'm sorry, but you have to make a much harder decision than, hey, was it a mistake or was it not a mistake? That's just not relevant. It is the law. Okay? Let someone change it the way they have. Their lawyer approached me and said, hey, this is wrong. And I said, doesn't matter, wrong or right, it's the law, right? And he said, yeah, you know what, you're right. What should we do? I said, contact Mr. Solomon and go through the rezoning process. It's exactly what they've done in a very responsible way. They've come with all of their reasons. The opposition has given you their reasons. And now you just have to decide what's best for the property, not, what happened 4 years ago. Luckily, you don't have to make that decision based on what happened 4 years ago. It literally has nothing to do with it. You have to look at the circumstances now, apply them to the law, which I'll help you with if you need any more help, and make a decision. It's that simple. Now, with regard to recusal, there are some of you on the right here that live in this neighborhood. Again, whether you live right next door to it, or across the neighborhood from it, or across town from it, if you don't have a financial interest in that property, if you don't own the dirt, or are buying or selling the dirt, then you don't recuse unless you want to. If you feel you must recuse because that's what's in your heart, then recuse. But legally, the only reason you have for recusal in state law is, do you have a financial interest in that property? In that property. I know you have a financial interest in your own property, but do you have one in that property? Okay? And if you don't, then you don't have a legal reason to recuse. Again, if you want to, I won't stop you. All right? And then there's one more little confusing thing, Marty. It's a no vote and a yes vote. In Arkansas cities, a thing passes when it has a majority of the council, of the whole, not of present. A majority of the council. On this council, it takes 5 votes to pass an item. Period. So it takes 5 yays. You can say no, you can say absent, you can say recuse, you can say Madonia, you can say whatever you want to say. But if you don't say A, then your vote doesn't get counted as an A vote. All right? And it takes 5 A votes to pass, or ayes. So thank you, Marty, very much for letting me go on and on like that. I appreciate it.
Gave me a little time to think some more.
Steve?
Could I just say that currently there are no plans for this property, and I really want to speculate on what might be there because somebody will try to hold me to it. I just threw out something last night as trying to answer a question, as a neighbor should do, and nobody liked it. But addressing the use of that property, I've heard time and time again, it's too high, there's nothing that could go on it. It'll have to go through Centerpoint. I don't want to be held to this. There's no reason there cannot be an entrance off of Highway 264. There's no reason. That's correct. Second of all, if you folks will just look right across the street, right across Monroe, and go towards 71B, you'll see a gastrointestinal doctor's office that uses Fox Run as its entrance and exit. So this is nothing new to the city of Lowell. So there are a couple options there. But I'm not here to design projects tonight. I'm here to talk about rezoning property. But I want everybody to be clear that what I've heard here is that property is no good for commercial. Yes, it is. It most definitely is. In fact, I would like to know who in the room would like to have their backyard back up to Highway 264. My goodness. Talk about a bad use of property. Please consider that.
Any other questions? Keith?
You know, over the last 8 years, I've seen a lot of controversial rezonings. And in a way, we're lucky with this one because this one isn't for sale right away, or this one's not there's no plans for development, and there's no time crunch. And we all can take our time and really look at this. And, you know, what I've seen in the other controversial rezonings, you know, eventually, usually the neighborhood and maybe the developer or the person trying to sell the land, or, you know, they work something out. And so tonight I'm not ready to make a decision because there's no rush into this because it's already residential. The neighborhood, they're protected. And Mr. Franklin's he's not ready to develop it yet. He's not ready to sell it. And, you know, but I think both the landowner and the neighborhood, they're going to have to work this out because if you look across the road there, it's commercial. You know, he can put anything he wants to there. I mean, of course, it has to go through the city, but, you know, there has to be some cooperation. And so tonight, I'm not really ready to vote either way. And so for tonight, you know, I guess it stays residential another night. And maybe something can be worked out between that neighborhood and the landowner. And, you know, it doesn't, like I said, you know, I've seen some controversial issues that I thought would never be resolved, and it was. And so tonight, I just think maybe, for me, I just want to take some time and think about this because I'm not ready to make a decision. And there's really no rush to do that.
You making a motion?
You don't have to make a motion.
You don't have to.
Are you making a motion to table it?
Sure.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that. You don't have to. But
Roll call, please.
Keith Williams.
Yes.
Marty Latham.
Yes.
Kendall Stuckey.
Yes.
Linda Shimko.
Yes.
Darren Brock.
Yes.
Jerry Foley.
Yes.
Eric Shine.
No.
Jeanette, have there been a motion? There was no other motion on the table?
No. Okay. Tabled. The zoning request has been tabled. Next item on the agenda is a resolution allowing disposal of surplus property and certification by mayor that the total value of each item on surplus property is less than $20,000.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we approve the resolution.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Linda Shimko.
Yes.
Darren Brock.
Yes.
Jerry Foley.
Yes.
Keith Williams.
Yes.
Eric Shine.
Yes.
Marty Latham.
Yes.
Kendall Stuckey.
Yes.
This will be resolution number 10-07.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
If there's no objections, the meeting is adjourned.
Feasible, something like that?
Yeah, I understand that.
Or commercial?
But I want to feel they've had their chance for.
Yeah, it helps me.
Where am I just?
How are you going to vote?
Walked in here thinking no, and no one changed my mind.
Know what?
No, just stay the way it is.
It should stay the way it was.
I don't live in there anymore. But I did once.
You know,
I have some ties there.
here's the thing.
There's a typo.
It's two-sided corn.
This morning, when they moved the stuff, we redid the design work. When they moved it over, they
Yeah,
cannot
you'll have to
be
get permits.
presented.